Hey there everybody, I am here to explain 3 years with the MazdaSpeed MX-5. Bought it in 2023. I really love it. I plan on holding on to it for quite a bit longer. Miatas are awesome. The internet pretty much knows that, and I'd say everyone who owns them knows that too. It's my first Miata, and I've driven it about 8,000 miles since I picked it up about 3 years ago. So I'd say quite a bit for a Miata. I've taken it on road trips, which has its downsides, and that's why I have the LS outside for that kind of thing. But otherwise, if I'm going around town and it's not raining or snowing, I'm probably going to take this because it's really engaging to drive. It really keeps your eyes on the road, and the manual is fun. The low weight is really fun. The color is fun. Everything about it's fun. That's why it's a great car. So I want to tell you what I've done to kind of keep this thing on the road, since obviously it's coming up on about 22 years old, this car. We're about to get to classic status at this point. So there's plenty of things that you may need to do, but this is my situation, and hopefully you can learn from it. From 2004 to 2005, only those 2 model years as far as I know in the United States, Mazda offered a factory turbo option on the NB2 Miata. NB2 meaning NB, B being the second letter of the alphabet, second generation, and then 2 meaning the second revision of the NB Miata, which I think ran from pretty much just the early 2000s until they came out with the NC, or the third generation Miata. So they released about 5,000 of these, and then there was a fire at the factory that made them, and that's why they stopped making them. And they never made a turbo Miata ever again, at least as of 2026. So these guys, I'd say, are pretty special if you're kind of looking for that sort of thing. There are some, I'd say, weaknesses to the way they implemented the turbo. I'll talk about that a little bit in this video too. But I think regardless, just because of the fun noises it makes and a lot of the other things, that for me it's worth the downsides of just having a special Miata. And it makes more power than the factory ones did, the ones without the turbo at least, which is fun. It delivers that power in a really interesting way, which I'll kind of try to describe without getting overly technical. Let's go. Let me show you what's going on with mine. So I thought I'd start on the exterior, just highlight some of the unique things that these cars came with. Here's the 17-inch Racing Heart wheels. They are heavy wheels and they are big wheels for this car. So, I mean, I'd say in some ways it wasn't necessarily with the spirit of the Miata, but they do look really cool. I like the design. And I do try to keep this car as factory original as possible. Of course, things break and things need to be replaced. And there are times when finding parts that are not expensive can be difficult. So as you'll see, I've obviously put some aftermarket bits on this car to keep it affordable. But man, I don't know. I love the look of this car so much. There's that air-to-air intercooler for the turbo. There are larger ones that Flying Miata and other places offer, but I've got the stock one still. Finally put a front plate on there. This Velocity red mica paint is awesome, and when the sun is extra bright in the summer, you can see an orange flake in the paint. I don't think you can see it quite here, maybe a little bit, but when it's super bright outside, you can see it, and it's gorgeous. There is a light body kit kind of going on around the back compared to a standard MB2 Miata. There is a MazdaSpeed exhaust tip. And I believe some parts of the exhaust might also not be the same. There's this little spoiler. We've got our MazdaSpeed logo back here. And obviously there's a lip up front too. I did kind of show it off a little bit in the last clip, but I'll get it again. You can see actually mine is drooping slightly. You can see here the line of adhesive where it originally was. So I am considering pulling that bodywork and then getting some new adhesive and putting it back kind of where it was. It's probably just kind of come down with gravity and time. It's actually a little bit better over here. But honestly, I mean, no biggie. It's a sports car. It's gonna be close to the ground all the time. And these things, I would say, even though their values have stayed very stable, they're not super expensive cars. One thing I didn't talk about in my 1 year video is this shorty antenna I got. The factory antenna is one of those nice power RC car style antennas. But the issue with the Android Auto equipped radio I put in the car was that every time you power the thing on, the power antenna would go up, even if you're not using the radio function. So I'm running Bluetooth in this thing most of the time, and it really just doesn't make sense to have the antenna up all the time. So I put the shorty in, and I think it makes the car obviously look a little different. But just not having the thing being up all the time is a nice add. Here on the gas cap door, some of these cars came with an aluminum gas cap. Mine does not have that. I noticed that there are some aftermarket options to have a gas cap holder here. I think I'm actually going to do that, because when you're taking this thing off and trying to add fuel, there's really nowhere to put this gas cap. I think that this is basically just to insert into this thing here. So there's nowhere really to put it, and you end up just kind of like having it sit here, which I kind of don't like. So it might be nice to be able to just put it up here. I also had to replace my passenger mirror. When I got this car, the casing was all loose, so it would kind of move up and down like this, and it would make annoying noises when you were driving. And it also had a like one of those mirror zoom in areas over here. I don't know what else to call it, but like it's a circle, and it was kind of stuck right here. I don't know whether that came from the factory or not, but the one that I found used ended up not having that. And as you can tell, obviously this one's nice and tight like it should be. As is common with many older cars, bulbs eventually go out. So now we've got some LED license plate lights. And then one of my turn signals went out, so I replaced both of them. That's pretty simple. You just peel this panel back, and it's a couple of screws, and you're pretty much done. Miata Man has a good video on that. He has a lot of other great videos on Miatas. Not sure if you noticed, but this door handle is black. From the factory, the door handle is this silverish color, and it's not chrome like a lot of the other NB Miatas. What ended up happening one day is I pulled that door latch, and the material of the door handle on the back side where the cable connects to it broke off. So then I ended up having a loose door handle, and I wasn't able to open the door from the inside. I'd have to go from the exterior to open the car. So that does not pass inspection in Virginia. So I had to replace it, and I actually could not find any driver's side door handle latches that were that color. They had the chrome ones, they had obviously the black ones, but they did not have the MazdaSpeed color. So, and similar situation, I haven't been searching super heavily, but over the past year or so, I have not been able to find one. So if anyone finds one, send me a link. I will happily take a look. So not only did you get a fully equipped NB2 interior with all the bits and bobs and stuff, but you got a red stitched steering wheel, which you can kind of see mine. If you look really close at these corners, they're kind of starting to pull outwards. I don't know whether that's a Mazda leather thing or if that's just this car thing, but I've been considering finding ways of like maybe recasing the steering wheel, just putting an outside to it or something else, or just keeping it the way it is, all worn like this. It's still a very nice steering wheel, nice and grippy, and it's not super worn out anywhere else. And that red stitch leather is all over the interior. You can see it on this parking brake lever. It's on the gear shift. It's on the seats. There was actually a cloth option of the MazdaSpeed MX-5, and they came with these red inserts instead of the black ones. You got some aluminum foot pedals with MazdaSpeed on the brake pedal. And of course, MazdaSpeed in the gauge cluster, and it lights up orange at night, which I thought was cool. We crossed 94,000 miles, baby. One really fun thing that I'm looking forward to getting in the mail pretty soon here is more cup holders. The factory ones here, they are a good size. Like, they fit plenty of stuff, but the downside is when you're driving, your arm's going right there. So I don't really use them very often. Sometimes in a pinch, I'll use this one, and then I'll obviously, if I can fit stuff in this front, while keeping it closed, I'll do that, but I don't really ever actually use this front one as a cup holder. So what the aftermarket figured out is that you can use this factory bolt location right here and kind of mount stuff to it. And there is a clip-on cup holder, sort of like in the ND Miatas. Check this boy out. We have a repainted valve cover, finally. I had talked about this in the 1-year video, and I'm really glad it's finally done. It was a whole process. Again, there are great videos on YouTube describing how to do this properly. But as you can see in this VHT wrinkle paint, it looks awesome. And not only did I do that, I also replaced some of my factory coolant hoses. I just wanted to make sure that they were good. And what's really coming up next is this radiator. It's not super brown or super green yet, but I know it's getting there, and I'm going to have to take care of it anyway, because this fan here does not seem to be working. I have not checked the electrics quite yet, but obviously here's the connector for that fan. I'm going to pull it and make sure that there's power going to it. This is the auxiliary fan, so thankfully my one fan here is still working, no problem. But when summer comes around, I'm definitely going to want to make sure that's fixed before things get too hot in here. This engine warms up very quickly, obviously, because with about 178 horsepower and the way the car is geared, you're already, warming it up pretty quickly, and these cars are known to get pretty hot. And then the last thing that ended up needing to be done over the past couple of years was tie rods. I was doing my typical checks, and during an oil change, I noticed that one of the tie rod ends was split, the boot itself. So I just got 2 tie rod ends and put them both in, and it's been fine so far. Although as far as suspension is concerned, since we're coming up on that 100,000 mile mark, I'm probably just going to check a few of the bushings and see if I'm just going to do a full refresh on this thing. It would probably make the car feel a lot newer, and it'd be really fun. These cars have Bilsteins from the factory, so they're already pretty on the hard side compared to some of the other suspension setups that Miatas came with. So I figured refreshing the bushings would help with some of that. As it is with cars that are 20 years old or older, honestly, even some 10-year-old cars need quite a bit of work. It takes a little bit of upkeep to keep this thing running, but I'm more than happy to do it because of how much fun this thing is to drive and be with. So I just wanted to touch on the way these cars make power compared to naturally aspirated Miatas. So there's been a lot of complaints historically online about what's called the bog, which is basically once this car gets up to a certain RPM, and power will cut out basically at around 5,000-ish RPM. I experienced that on occasion. It's not all the time. It's more of a sometimes kind of thing. I also don't drive it super hard all of the time, so maybe that's part of why I don't experience it too much. But basically what's going on is the ECU in this car and all of the MazdaSpeeds, honestly, its programming is subpar at best. I think it's still, like I said, worth that downside and a couple of other downsides that these guys have over the naturally aspirated cars. The specialness of the car really adds to it for me, so I'm keeping it. And the extra power is really fun too, and the turbo noises, of course, are awesome. I had a Mark 5 GTI before this, and I always love having a turbo car. Even though this is more of an old school turbo kind of experience, it's still super fun, and because the turbo is small, it seems to spool up pretty quickly, which I really like. So as you guys can tell, I really love my car. As this Miata gets closer and closer to 100,000 miles, I expect it to reach that in the next couple of years or so. Sometimes I wonder whether I should upgrade my Miata, get something newer, but then I look at the glove box and the nice color that this one has. and all the other unique bits that came on the MazdaSpeeds, and I'm like, I don't know, I should probably just hold on to it, especially with how much I've really enjoyed it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If there's anything you want to know about my car specifically, please hit me up via any method. I am more than happy to respond. And just know I do read every comment, even though I don't respond to everything. I do read them, so thank you for commenting. If you want to see even more of the MazdaSpeed, please give the video a like, subscribe, share, all the things that YouTube likes to tell me to do. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day, night, whatever's going on in your world. And I will see you all in future videos. Bye-bye.